Well, Blevs, your Christmas bonus is in place. I have no idea how to top that. I know that you were given 2 minutes and took all of my 4, but I'll try to make mine short. All of us have been blessed in so many ways. All here have experienced soaring highs and days when you want to ask the Lord, please let us go on. This day and this moment is a soaring high for me. I have had the good fortune to have been a friend, banker, co-director, and acquaintance of 18 members of this Hall of Fame. There are seminal moments that occur early in all of our careers that shape the way we think. Here are a couple of stories with members that certainly changed my life and allowed me to join this group of accomplished entrepreneurs. One night in 1982, I was flying back from Louisville to my home in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, with Wachovia's top treasury management expert after we were calling on customers. Many of you remember back in those days, Piedmont Airlines did a bunch of short hops throughout the Southeast. I was remarking to my colleague that I knew a bank that had a 30% capital ratio that was coining money mainly because interest rates were at an all-time high. A gentleman sitting in front of me peered around the side of his seat and said, "That must be the Farmers Bank and Capital Trust Company in Frankfort, Kentucky." That man was Bill Gatton. It was probably 10 o'clock that night when we landed at the Tri-Cities airport. Bill and I chatted further, went to his house and finished up at 5 a.m. We devised a plan to borrow 50% of the bank's capital in an attempt to acquire total control of the institution, since shares were trading at 25% of book value. I quit my job after 10 years at Wachovia, moved in with my in-laws in Frankfort. Bill and I addressed the board of directors and told them of our plan. I spent 30 days calling on shareholders door to door. We did not acquire one share of stock. I headed back to the Wachovia Bank to beg for my job back. Lesson learned, and we've all learned this lesson. If you're going to fail, fail fast. David Grissom was our banker in this endeavor. Getting to know David and Bill led to many things, including creating Cardinal Bank shares in Lexington with Bill, and ultimately we owned deposit-heavy banks in Eastern Kentucky that allowed us to start the Vine Street Trust Company in Lexington and the Jefferson Banking Company here in Louisville. Bill Gatton was the finest entrepreneur that I have ever known. Quick story number 2. In the late 70s, my boss said, "You're from Kentucky, go back home and bring us deposits and loans." So predictably, I did what any aspiring 22-year-old would do. Let's try to call on the CEO of Maker's Mark. Mr. T.W. Samuels took my call, and the meeting was set in Loretto. Mr. Samuels could not have been more kind. He took me on a comprehensive tour of the distillery and explained why he used red winter wheat instead of rye. He also explained that another key to his success was rotating the barrels in the rickhouse from year to year before bottling in 6.5 years. It was now time to settle down in his office and have a business meeting. He began by saying, "I do business with the First National Bank of Louisville, and they treat me like the only customer in the bank." And I said, "Mr. Samuels, how did they do that?" "Well, young man, I found the family recipe in the attic in the late 40s, and I went to the bank to borrow money. They asked, 'How long will it take you to pay it back?' And he said, in 6.5 years. They loaned me the money without principal payments for over 6 years, and now you know why I'm so loyal to them. To this day, everywhere you turn at Live Oak Bank, there's a sign that says, treat every customer like the only customer in the bank. These were two great entrepreneurs. These were two great Kentuckians. Lastly, my dad worked for Ashland Oil and was killed in a company plane crash in 1962. I was 11. We instantly moved to my grandparents' family farm in Franklin County from Buffalo, New York. And that week, I met Peggy Dunstall. At 14, I wrote in her yearbook that I was going to marry her. We married at 22, and every time we had a big business decision to make, we did the same thing. The same thing. We'd get out the yellow legal pad, write down the positives and the negatives. And then I would tell her, I can't live with myself if we don't try it. She always asked me the same questions. How long do I have to pack and where are we going? From North Carolina back to Kentucky, on to Atlanta, and back to North Carolina. Always, always, she and my children had a huge smile on their face as we turned to the next page. I am honored to the bone that the Mahan family is part of this team. Thank you very much.